Everyone knows PETA. Or well, maybe not by name, because it sounds like a brand of hummus, but what if I tell you that it's that organization that throws shit at video games on every chance it gets? Because in Call of Duty a dog dies, and look at all the other things to complain about Call of Duty. You can even throw a grenade at a baby, but no! The problem is that a virtual dog dies. You might know them better as the ones who came out saying that Pokemon was an allegory to animal abuse. Well, maybe they had a point there, huh? That Mario is promoting cruelty because he's wearing a raccoon costume, and that Cooking Mama was basically Saw but with chicken. And of course, you hear that and you think, okay, maybe it's a slightly intense NGO. Crazy, but with good intentions, right? Whether it's animal rights, compassion, that the world will be a much better place with tofu, a worthy cause indeed. After all, nobody wants to hurt kittens. Well, ironically, it turns out that PETA does want it after all. PETA presents itself as an ethical beacon, an international organization for the defense of animals' rights, founded in 1980 by Ingrid Newkirk, which sounds like the teacher of Hogwarts, which you suspect isn't exactly squeaky clean from the very first movie. And the idea seemed noble, to end animal suffering. And they came out with a typical pack of disruptive activism, protesting naked, gluing yourself to establishments, throwing paint to designers, the activism starter pack, basically. But behind all that talk of love for animals, something murky was happening in their shelters. No shady business like when Ramsey takes white bread and says, "Idiot sandwich, what?" No, but rather about why the hell have you been leaders in the sacrifice of healthy animals for a decade? Every year, thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of animals are sacrificed for the own organization. Healthy cats, adoptable dogs, puppies, rabbits, hamsters, so many that PETA has been the leader in animal deaths. Years where over 80% of the animals that enter PETA don't get out alive. The difference compared to others is so ridiculously high that I even find it insulting, but don't worry, although all of this may sound very cruel, it's actually because it's not. Yes, you're right. They're really doing it for their own good. Yes, they explain it this way. Keeping domestic animals alive, knowing that they cannot defend themselves in the wild, is a form of cruelty. Then, the compassionate is killing them. PETA has reinvented the concept of ethical eugenics. Seen this way, PETA also has a solution for orphanages. Oh, what a pity for the children who don't have parents. They're gonna have a hard time in life. We're better off killing them. Come here, child. Come, I'm doing you a favor. Come here, boy, come, don't run, come here. So while you feel bad about killing the digital dog in The Last of Us, PETA is watching the way to save money by optimizing the slaughter of animals. But hey, you're the ones desensitized to animal violence, not those who sacrifice hundreds, if not thousands of animals. No, you who play video games are the truly insensitive people. So today, we're going to talk about PETA, about how their activism in video games is a performative circus that oscillates between the pathetic and the offensive, and why, if you're a stray dog, you're probably safer in a sausage factory than in a shelter from PETA. The strange thing is that, despite all of this, despite the corpses in the trunk, literally, the reports, the public data, most people don't know PETA because of that. People know PETA for the memes, for their absurd campaigns, for the times they have stretched into the digital conversation like a drunk crashing a wedding he wasn't invited to. And specifically, if you follow this channel, you'll probably remember some of its protests in video games, because geeks like to stay informed. And although many people have forgotten, or perhaps never knew, the history of PETA in video games doesn't start with Pikachu crying blood, or with Mario turning into Tanuki Skinner. Rather, it starts with chickens. It all started in 2008 with a Flash game called Super Chick Sisters, a Flash minigame that parodied Super Mario but with a chicken and a hen as protagonists. The goal? To infiltrate KFC factories, denounce animal cruelty in the meat industry, and rescue Pamela Anderson. Yes, no joke. The game exists, it's documented, and it has a sequel. Because yes, it had a sequel, a second part also in 2008, where now the villain was Ronald McDonald, who became a sort of animal rights multiverse in which the final bosses were fast food chains and the allies were Playboy models. And it must be said that these first two incursions weren't so bad. They are a bit ridiculous, but they didn't attack the video game. Instead, they attacked fast food chains using Mario's aesthetic to create their own game with a message. In this case, a critique of the chain's use of outdated methods and animal suffering in meat preparation. The viral video didn't work out, so PETA thought, okay, if the message isn't working, let's go for controversy. That same year, they decided to shoot Cooking Mama. They considered that the game's protagonist promoted animal cruelty with the recipes, so they launched their own version. Cooking Mama, Mom Kills Animals, a crappy Flash game. Look at this. What is this, man? They searched for an arm.png on Google and didn't even bother to check if it had transparency. And between levels, the game displayed messages about animal suffering and asked players to write to the company, Majesco, to pressure them for a version with vegetarian recipes. The thing is, the game also has vegetarian recipes, and that's how the studio responded, releasing a statement in which Mama calmly replied that the game actually already includes more than 20 5 vegetarian recipes. And then Mama, although she isn't vegetarian, supports the humane treatment of animals, downplayed the matter somewhat, and concluded with, I would never put a rat in my ratatouille. Like any accomplished cook, I create my recipes to satisfy a wide range of tastes and preferences. My only goal is to make sure you leave the table well fed. The Mama. And so began their first controversy, which was picked up by all the video game media due to the absurdity of the situation. Objective achieved, I suppose. But they didn't stop there. In 2010, they decided to go after Super Meat Boy. For those who don't know, it's a really cool platformer where the protagonist is a cube of meat. Well, according to PETA, this was whitewashing the consumption of meat. Because yes, this chunk of meat cube that won't stop bleeding apparently encourages meat consumption. I see this game and I'm like, damn, I could really go for steak right now. So they decided to create their own version, Super Tofu Boy. The game is horrible, but there was no shortage of nerds with their speedrun. In this case, Edmund Macmillan decided to take it as a joke, and the studio responded by incorporating Tofu Boy as a playable character in Super Meat Boy as an Easter egg. And a year later comes one of the biggest hits of secondhand embarrassment, Mario Kills Tanuki. A campaign against Super Mario 3D Land accused Mario of promoting the use of animal fur, because, of course, Mario, by putting on a magic raccoon suit, was sending a dangerous message. Killing bugs to get powers is cool. Well, yes, I guess it's cool. Of course, a cheap Flash game will come with it. The public reaction was completely negative. Everyone turned against them, especially considering that Mario obtains the suit with a magic leaf, accused him of being a pothead, not an animal abuser. Faced with this avalanche, they had to come out and say it was just a little joke. At least they didn't claim it was a social experiment. And that same year, in 2011, PETA launched a critique of Battlefield 3 because in one scene, the player can stab a rat. Oh my god. Let's clarify this. Battlefield 3, a shooter where you blow up buildings, helicopters, and entire armies, but you can kill a rat. PETA claimed that this could have a desensitizing effect on young people. Well, if you're someplace 8 hours of modern warfare and what sticks with them is a rat in the hallway, it's not the industry's fault. It's just that you might have a little Dexter at home. And we go to 2012, to one of the most talked about campaigns, the climax of cringe. PETA launches its magnum opus, Pokemon Black and Blue. An injured, bandaged, scarred Pikachu rebelling against human trainers. The message was that Pokemon teaches children to subdue and exploit animals. I have to say, PETA's people are absolutely right on this one. Ironically, you can use attacks to electrocute humans, because apparently violence is wrong unless you direct it at someone you dislike. This is something that's very common on Twitter, by the way. It was such a success, at least in terms of virality, that they said, so we're going to repeat this, right? So the following year, they'll release the sequel, Pokemon Red, White, and Blue. Here you face the McDonald's clown. I don't know why. This time, the reception was lukewarm. Less surprising, the joke wasn't funny anymore. It was more like, oh, these guys again with the same old thing? Yeah, good, very good, don't bother me, I'm busy. And Nintendo was content to respond with a terse, almost mafia-like statement. Nintendo and the Pokemon Company take the misuse of our products and intellectual property very seriously, which translated from Nintendo speak into English means, do it again and I'll bury you in cease and desist orders. And you know perfectly well that these aren't just empty threats. They also try to promote a protest in World of Warcraft to defend the digital baby seals that were being clubbed to death. Ironically, this virtual crusade happened while real seals were still being hunted in some regions. Perhaps pixelated seals shouldn't be the priority. The protest was a parade of avatars shouting, "Pixels feel too!" in PvP zones. In 2013, the target was Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Ubisoft had included whale hunting mechanics in a game about pirates, plunder, death, and destruction, you know, and that couldn't go unpunished. PETA called the practice a glorification of a cruel industry and urged Ubisoft to eliminate that virtual barbarity. Ubisoft responded in a base manner for the first time in its history. We are not in favor of illegal whaling, nor from poor hygiene or pirate plunder. During the following years, things calmed down. The campaigns were losing impact. The media didn't pay as much attention to them anymore, and it seemed like PETA would take a break. And we arrive at 2017. The internet explodes with a video of a man punching a kangaroo that you've all seen at some point. And amidst the chaos, Bandai Namco decides to remove the character of Roger, the boxing kangaroo from Tekken. According to the game's producer, Katsuhiro Harada, even though they probably wouldn't play our game, activists would see a kangaroo being hit and they would complain. And indeed, PETA reacted with a smile. The glorification of marsupial boxing had finally been eliminated. However, Kuma, the bear who hands out beatings like candy, was still on the payroll, but of course, bears weren't a trending topic yet. In 2018, it arrived again to go up against Far Cry 5, and like a clickbait headline from a hungry YouTuber, the reason will surprise you. It turns out they publicly complained that Far Cry 5 allowed fishing. According to PETA, fishing means deceiving a fish to catch it, exposing it to terror and suffocation for minutes or hours in an agonizing struggle before killing it or even cutting it up alive. And that promoting fishing, even virtually, was reprehensible. I honestly hate fishing minigames, so I'll pass on this one. In 2020, we arrived at Animal Crossing New Horizons. 2020, pandemic, absolute sales record. Obviously, PETA had something to say about it. First, they released a guide to playing Animal Crossing ethically, where they told you that fishing, catching bugs, or collecting clams were cruel practices. They also recommended not wearing fur clothing nor building dog houses. Very serious. And furthermore, they organized a virtual protest within the game. Several employees gathered on an island and held a demonstration shouting, "Empty the tanks or the fish are friends." And yes, I swear to you this happened. I guess we all had too much free time during the quarantine. A year later, in 2021, they launched several formal complaints against Far Cry 6 for including cockfights. They compared the minigame to Mortal Kombat because, of course, it's much more worrying to see two roosters beating each other up than to see a dictator gassing living civilians. Priorities. In 2022, they targeted God of War Ragnarok, requesting that Sony include a PETA mode in the game that would eliminate combat against animals, even mythological ones. Imagine playing God of War without fighting ice wolves, giant bears, or time serpents. Basically, it will be Walking Dead Simulator with a beard. After this, they relaxed, with some tweets or parody videos of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth about the chicken mission, a guide to playing Palworld without harming the creatures, recommendations on how to play Elden Ring without killing animals, such as parrying mounted enemies to avoid harming the horses, until we reached the last one. In 2025, with the launch of Mario Kart World, PETA accused Nintendo of promoting cannibalism because the new cow character could eat a hamburger. The fact that Moo Moo Cow consumes hamburgers in the game is a representation of bovine cannibalism, which we consider unacceptable and problematic. PETA is urging Nintendo to clarify whether the hamburgers consumed by the character are vegan or if they are actually made of meat, which would reinforce the fact that it promotes cannibalism. Cow cannibalism. I'm out of jokes here. They have also gotten involved in other things, such as sending a public letter to Games Workshop requesting that Warhammer removes its animal skins from the soldiers' clothing. According to PETA, even though Space Marines and Fantasy Warriors are imaginary, wearing fur sends the message that wearing fur is okay, something that has no place in 2017 or the year 40,000. At this point, you might think they're nuts, and yes, but not entirely. They are optimized. They get involved in every possible mess to be in all the media of all possible sectors. In film, in fashion, in gastronomy, in medicine. They don't care what they preach. They probably don't even believe the nonsense of the protests they launch. They just want the visibility. Now, put yourself in their shoes for a moment. You're an organization that lives off impulsive donations, off indignant attention. Your message can't compete on the timeline with videos of kittens and people falling downstairs. So you need something more. You need to provoke. You need noise. And then you look around and say, which medium generates more intense, more visceral, faster reactions? PETA doesn't attack video games because it cares about video games. They attack them because they matter to you. And each of their movements follows the same template. Choose a gamer mechanic that involves animals. Taking it out of context, apply extreme reading, make a minigame, a tweet, or a press release, waiting for the gaming world to combust, gather attention, gather clicks, gather donations. It's pure marketing, but disguised as ideology. The goal is not to change the game. It's that you talk about the game. The media outlets like IGN or Kotaku say, PETA has done it again. Let people look for the Flash minigame for the laughs. Let there be memes, videos, outrage, because every click, even if it's to insult them, is traffic. And that traffic translates into visibility, and that visibility in donations. They've turned the meme into a business model, because the algorithm rewards the emotional, not the rational. It rewards the immediate, not the reason. So PETA does exactly that. Simple messages, shocking images, absurd by viral logic. Look how Mario encourages the illegal hunting of tanukis. The problem with PETA isn't that they're extremists, it's that they're hypocrites, and their founder is a complete fucking nutjob. And I'm not the only one who says so. Although, well, considering that in 2008 PETA proposed that Ben and Jerry stop using cow's milk in their ice cream and use human breast milk instead, maybe I am saying it. Quoting Nathan J. Winograd, a leading activist in the no-kill movement, Ingrid is like those nurses who kill their patients under the pretext of compassion and preventing their suffering. Because while you were reading the nonsense that Mario Kart promotes bovine cannibalism, PETA was sacrificing real animals. Not one, not 10, thousands every year. It's not a hidden fact. It's published in the reports that PETA submits annually to the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. services where its headquarters are located. In 2022, for example, they collected 2,355 animals and euthanized 1,984. That's more than 84%, and it's not an isolated case. In 2011, they reached 96%. No other animal protection organization in the United States has those figures, neither pest control centers nor emergency shelters. No one kills as much as they do. Former employees who dare to speak out describe it as a routine, an assembly line of sacrifice. Nathan J. Winograd wrote the highly recommended book, Why PETA Kills, which includes statements from former employees and discusses how, in most cases, no attempt was ever made to find homes for the animals. There were pickup trucks, yes, there were cages, vans, personnel, but all of that served only one purpose, to take the animal to the slaughterhouse. While working at PETA, my main responsibilities consisted of getting as many cats and dogs as possible, almost all of whom were euthanized. Statements from the book Why PETA Kills. PETA had an internal program called the Community Animal Project, CAP. Well, according to former employees, the main goal of the Community Animal Project was to persuade people to surrender their animals so that PETA could euthanize them. An affidavit from a former PETA field worker confirmed that CAP's goal was to acquire animals by any means necessary in order to kill them. All of this and more is included in the book Why PETA Kills, which, as I said, I highly recommend reading. Virginia passed a law in 2015 called SB 1381, which stated that animal shelters must have as their primary purpose finding adoptive homes for the animals in their care. Makes sense, right? And guess who opposed it? Our dear friends at PETA. I wonder why. In 2014, two PETA employees stole Maya, a healthy, domesticated dog from the porch of a house, and it was revealed through security footage that they took the dog and euthanized her the same day. Although they initially denied it, they eventually admitted it. They had to pay $49,000 to avoid going to trial, which would have forced internal witnesses to testify under oath. And it's not an isolated case. There are dozens. The book Dark Side of the Animal Rights Movement compiles testimonies from workers who claim to have witnessed the sacrifice of perfectly adoptable animals, young dogs, affectionate cats, even puppies. They accepted animals voluntarily surrendered by their owners, thinking they were going to protect them or find them a foster home, only to have them end up being sacrificed. And the most terrifying thing isn't the numbers, it's the logic behind them. Because according to PETA, keeping domesticated animals alive, knowing they can't fend for themselves in the wild, is a form of cruelty. So the compassionate thing to do is to kill them. Euthanasia is a product of love for animals who have no one to love them. Sometimes animals need the solace of being released from their suffering, a painless release from a world in which they were mistreated and unwanted. A dead animal doesn't suffer. PETA does not believe in adoption, doesn't believe in cohabitation, doesn't believe in the concept of a pet. In its purest ideals, nobody should own a dog. No one should have a cat. Animals must live in the wild or die. PETA actively opposes field cat colony control programs, which sterilize and release stray cats, because instead, they promote their humane elimination. And then they have the utter nerve to launch campaigns with posters and leaflets aimed at being distributed directly to children, claiming that your mom kills animals. Well, you're a son of a bitch too, you know. However, they're good for stupid things like asking to change the name of Hamburg to Veggiebird. The worst part is that they could have done it right, but they don't want to. Like PETA, most animal protection organizations choose to educate and cooperate rather than to attack. For example, the Humane Society and other conservation associations have worked directly with film or television studios to advise on the treatment or representation of animals. In the video game world, similar alliances could occur. Imagine PETA advising a developer to create missions in an open world game where the player saves endangered animals instead of simply hunting them. Niantic, for example, collaborated with environmental organizations on Earthly events, where players unlocked in-game rewards by participating in cleanup days or ecological activities. This motivated hundreds of thousands of players to pick up trash or plant trees. Even in Animal Crossing New Horizons, which PETA criticized, was noted by University of Melbourne researchers to foster an appreciation for nature, as it teaches the player about different species of fish, insects, and fossils, and promotes keeping the island clean and diverse. I spoke with Anna J. Caceres to make this video. She's a biologist specializing in marine mammals, a science communicator, and the author of the highly recommended book History of Whales and Other Cetaceans. She's someone who dedicates her life to animals without turning it into a spectacle like others do. And PETA's problem isn't just that they kill animals, which isn't a small thing. It's that on top of that, they harm those who are trying to save them. Because when an organization with so much name recognition, so much visibility, and so much absurd marketing monopolizes the discourse on animal rights, what gets left out is what's truly good. The work of thousands of shelters, volunteers, and small associations that do find homes, to vaccinate, to rehabilitate, and do provide support. And now, every time an animal shelter talks about animal welfare, they have to clarify that they are not like those at PETA. It seems that they have to apologize for something they haven't done. PETA occupies the media space that should belong to those who do real work. They have money, they have lawyers, they have designers to make a minigame where they portray Mario as a raccoon killer, but instead, they don't have a national adoption program, or a foster care network, or educational campaigns. While they pose and make stupid statements, others clean beaches, heal real wounds, rehabilitate abused animals, or rescue abandoned litters in a cardboard box. But these latter ones, don't appear in Kotaku.